Hey, welcome back to the Honey Mirages vlog for 11th of May, and I don't remember which number this one is, so I'm not going to bother because that's just another thing I have to look up and try to remember at the start of a video. So it's 11th of May. It's been 3 weeks since I did a vlog. I missed out doing a vlog for the last 2 Mondays because I was working hard on my performance video that I've been talking about, and I would spend all Monday, working on that performance video, and then at the end of it, I was like, switching gears to do a vlog was just too much. So no vlog for the last 2 Mondays, but got one today because I'm not working on the performance video today because all of that is done, or I am done with it. Actually, is probably more accurate because for a number of reasons. First of all, it turns out that playing for a live performance for an hour, is a lot of work. And, we recorded all the videos for it, but, I've been practicing this for probably about 6 months now. As the first time I started putting together, performing a live show. And I haven't performed live in many, many years. And, it's about an hour of material, and I think I totally underestimated the amount of work that it would take to actually play all of that material accurately, without a lot of mistakes. And when I'm, recording a video, playing a performance, for a video, I'm not as cool with mistakes as I would be, if I was, when I played the performance at the party that I played at, a couple of months ago. And so, trying to get takes or enough takes to actually, record, have enough recorded video of me playing the song accurately that I can edit together like one version of the track, that's a live performance that, that actually doesn't make me cringe because there's just mistakes every, 20 seconds or so. Is a lot harder than it sounds. And so we recorded a whole lot of video. We recorded many, many takes of me doing these tracks in the hope that I would be able to, edit together, one complete take that, was mistake-free enough that I would be happy with it. And in the end, there was just so much material, and, we pushed forward, and I was going to be okay with it, but then after we'd finished recording and I sat down and I started exporting the recorded playthroughs, because I was recording as I'm recording the video with cameras. I'm also separately recording the actual the performance in Ableton Live. And when I came to the point of actually trying to export all of those recordings, I had yet more technical problems with Ableton Live because of the way that it's set up. And, it wasn't a total showstopper, but having to do quite a bit of editing work on those recordings in order for them to be ready to export was just, it was the final nail in the coffin for that project of trying to actually make live videos, because I was staring down the barrel of having to do literally like weeks of weeks worth of work to actually get all of that audio exported. And when we didn't necessarily, want all of it, because I only wanted, clips from here, clips from there where I'd gotten it right. And actually marshalling all of that audio together to go with the video was just, this project has already taken way longer than I wanted it to. And so, we decided to, I made the executive decision that I was going to pivot on this live performance video idea and just use all of the recorded audio to make film clips for the master recordings that I've recently had finished and that are still, waiting in the wings for me to do something with. So, it's not a waste of time. All that time I spent recording the video is worth it, because I will use, clips from all of that recording to make video clips for the master recordings that I'm going to put up soon, and but they're not going to be live performances as such, because learning how to play an hour's worth of material, accurately, and be able to play it well, and be able to, focus on, the camera / the audience instead of looking at the instrument while I'm playing, in order so that I don't screw up. It's a harder job than I realized, and and it's all good learning, because now I know that next time I'm intending to put on a live performance, that there's a lot of work that's going to have to go into actually learning the songs, and so that they're good enough that I'm not making mistakes every 15, 20, 30 seconds or so. And there'd be people who might think, well, you're being a perfectionist, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's not like I want, I don't necessarily, there's quite a few sort of mistakes that I could make that, I'm okay to let it fly. But when it's just like I totally miss a cue, or I play a note that's completely off key, or whatever, it's just, it's not what I want to put up on my channel. And so, but I'm happy, I've got all this video material I can use to make film clips for the recorded versions of the tracks. And that's what I'm going to do with it. Which brings me to the next thing I've been doing since then, which is that, coming to the end of that project and having so many problems with the way that things were recorded in Ableton Live, it brought everything to a head, because it was the final nail in the coffin for this, the setup that I've been trying to use to get things done. And ultimately, it has become the final nail in the coffin for Ableton Live, which is the software that I use to do everything, to either perform live or to record, etc. Because I've had so many, while doing this whole live performance project, I've had roadblock after roadblock, and all these technical problems that I've tried to overcome in order to actually deliver this project. And before that, I was just the way that I want to be able to actually compose music, and work with my setup in order to actually write, roadblock after roadblock there as well. And it's the same roadblock with both situations, which is being able to easily choose between all of the sounds that I use, in a manner that is easy to work with, and easy to record. So when I'm recording, I want to be able to change between sounds on my keyboard and record different parts of the music in a way that once I save that project, it's easy to come back and edit later. And it's the same problem, when I'm standing on a stage and playing live. I want to be able to choose different sounds that I'm playing on my keyboard very quickly, just using buttons, on my keyboard controllers. And then, even though that is a bit of a different situation to recording, it's not really when you want to actually record the live performance, because, recording a live performance, ultimately you want to be able to, just hit record, do a whole live performance, and at the end have a project that you can save and then reopen later, and, all of the changes of sounds are embedded in the thing. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that I do everything in MIDI. I am a MIDI-based musician, because I'm a keyboard synth player, and MIDI is the way that I want to do things. And Ableton Live just has a whole lot of limitations in regards to mapping controls, and then recording those changes of sounds. And none of the solutions are really very satisfactory. And having this problem again with recording live performances really just made it brought everything to a head. And afterwards, I was so annoyed with the whole situation that I finally decided it was time to evaluate looking at different software. And so, um, so yeah, I mean, the problems, just to list them out, the problems that I had with Ableton Live, in working with MIDI, because when I want to record things, mostly I want to record MIDI clips. I don't want to record audio, and there's a number of reasons for that. But in trying to do a MIDI-based workflow, my biggest problems with Ableton Live was that it doesn't support multi-channel MIDI. MIDI is fundamentally is multi-channel. There's 16 channels in a typical MIDI stream, and Ableton Live just gets all of them and just squashes them all into a single channel. So it doesn't matter what channel you send a sound on, it just squashes it all, effectively to this omni channel one. It doesn't support program change, which means that if you want to change sounds, like the method that is provided within MIDI, the MIDI specification itself, is to use program change messages, and Ableton Live really does not support them well at all. Ableton Live doesn't provide any reasonably easy way to actually switch sounds. Now, the way that most people do it is with a chain selector in Ableton Live, but the problem then is that it's difficult to jump to a specific value. And so that, to switch to a specific sound, I've had like a chain selector mapped to a knob, but then twisting a knob to actually select sounds is the more sounds you map onto that knob, the more accurate you have to be, and the more like uncertain it is while you're actually playing an instrument on stage and you don't have visual feedback in front of you to just flip the knob and select a specific sound. And it's not easy to map, some kind of, increment, decrement, move to the next one, move to the previous one, jump to a specific number, using chain selectors. And then the next problem in Ableton Live is that if you map everything onto a chain selector, then you have to have a VST set up for every target. And given the number of sounds that I want, you end up with like dozens and dozens of VST instruments, and then you start having performance problems with Ableton Live. I set up a set once where I had a whole lot of different tracks, and each track had a bunch of different sounds available on it, and I started having this problem where every time you hit play or stop in Ableton Live, it sort of sends a reset. I believe what's going on behind the scenes is that it sends a bit of a reset signal, like a start or a stop signal, to every single one of those VSTs, and you get these huge CPU spikes that actually every time you hit start or stop on the transport, the whole thing kind of judders into motion or judders to a stop, because it's spiking to 100% CPU when you do that. So using the chain selector is not a very good solution either. For my purposes. So, and then, and just add on top of this that Ableton Live does not really have good handling of the sustain pedal. And this is one of the oldest problems I've had with Ableton Live. I've struggled with this for 10 plus years, where if you're using your sustain pedal and you switch away to a different instrument and you don't lift the sustain pedal before you switch, then the sustain pedal's hung on, and those notes will sustain forever until you switch back to that sound and hit the sustain pedal again to give it the up signal, so that it can let go of those notes. And this is, it's the same problem just with holding notes down. If you're holding keys on when you switch to another sound, then those sounds will all hang. But it's easier with your fingers to lift up and then hit the change of sound than it is with the sustain pedal, because the whole way that I use the sustain pedal when I play is to sustain notes over the boundaries of like I hold the sustain pedal down, lift my hands up, play a different chord, and then lift the sustain pedal. That is the way that I'm used to working, and it just doesn't work with the way that Ableton Live handles both clip looping and also switching channels. So that's another problem as well. So I started looking around at different digital audio workstations, and really there was quickly, two specific ones that I was interested in. The first one is a software called Bitwig Studio, and the other one is called Renoise. Now, what attracts me to both of these is that they're both available for Linux, and I'm very interested in the future in switching away from using Windows to using Linux for my for my audio workstation, because I have a lot of problems with keeping a stable setup with Windows, because it's a consumer operating system. It's not made for a professional environment, and I use Linux. Linux operating systems at work for servers, for online programming that I do. I'm a software engineer at work, and I administrate Linux systems for our online servers, and they are rock solid. It's the sort of thing that you set it up and it just stays how you've set it up. It's not this idea like Windows, which is becoming Windows is becoming software as a service. Windows is becoming like mobile operating systems, where you don't really control what the software does on your device. It updates itself and it changes features on you, and it's this rolling thing that Microsoft are delivering to you on an ongoing basis. It's not a controlled environment for the user, and that just makes me increasingly uncomfortable with depending on it as a professional solution to a highly technical setup, where this whole thing is really it's a bit of a house of cards, and to have the base constantly changing on you is just not. It just doesn't fill me with confidence. And so I've been eyeing off the idea of switching to Linux for ages, and so that was one of the reasons why I'm already considering looking at Bitwig and Renoise. And I've been thinking about switching to one of these two, or at least trialing them for probably about 3 or 4 years now. And the main reason I haven't done it is because, or haven't even looked at them at all, is because it just felt like another type of procrastination. I mean, there's so many things to do in this project, and switching, spending time evaluating that other software when I didn't really have a concrete, solid reason to do so was just, it didn't get high enough up the priority list for me to give it the time that I knew that it would need. However, after this whole performance project, the Ableton Live, all the problems that I have with Ableton Live not really suiting the workflow that I want have finally come to a head. And so this last weekend, I've been evaluating whether I would like to switch to Bitwig or Renoise. And so, I did a little bit of reading, and unfortunately, Renoise got... I hit a roadblock with that one very early, just while I was reading the capabilities and features of the two before I'd even started playing with them. And that is that Renoise will only record one external sound source at a time. And that is a limitation I'm not willing to live with for stage, because even though I could say, well, for myself, everything else I'm doing all of these different things that are all synths, and I really only need to record one audio source, which is my voice for vocals. But I already would like to have a multi-microphone setup so I can have different effects available. And I do have a guitar, and it would be nice to eventually have a guitar. And if I have like someone else on stage with me and I want to be able to mix them into my performance, then all of those things are not possible, because you can only have you can only have one audio source coming into Renoise at a time. Renoise was very attractive to me because it is a tracker. I won't go into what that means, but back in the old days, I first started with trackers on the Amiga many years ago, and the idea of a modern digital audio workstation that is based on tracker workflow was very attractive to me. But ultimately, the fact that it will only record one audio source at a time means that, you know, it is so focused on being a tracker that it's really not very good as a digital audio workstation, like a non-linear editor. So I've put that one aside for now, and I decided to have a look at Bitwig Studio and seriously evaluate it. And, you know, I've just spent the last 2 days playing around with Bitwig Studio and specifically trying out all of the things that have been, you know, problematic for me in Ableton. And I can happily report that, sorry, I got my notes here, of course, as usual. I can happily report that Bitwig Studio basically solves every single one of the problems that I've had. Its MIDI implementation is vastly superior to Ableton Live. And, you know, Ableton Live tries to simplify things for you, but it goes a bit too far. You know, it tries to simplify MIDI for someone who is mostly in an audio workflow, but I want a MIDI workflow, and so I want the full capabilities of what MIDI can do. And Ableton Live just sort of removes a number of them in order to try to provide a simplified solution, and it's just not working for me. And so, you know, with Bitwig, you know, the first thing that was awesome about it is that it actually has a device called an instrument selector that provides for exactly the sort of situation that I want, where I want to have a whole lot of different sounds loaded, and I can choose, you know, by sending a program change or, you know, hitting some other mapped button, I can just choose which sound I'm using at any given time, and that I can record those changes of sounds so that, you know, I can hit record, I can, you know, play a passage using one sound, change to another sound and play some more, and then hit stop. And when I play that back, it's on the first sound to begin with, and when I change sounds, it has recorded that change of sound and it goes to the other one. And, you know, in Ableton, you could do, you know, you can record changes in chain selectors, but chain selectors have a whole bunch of other problems. I don't want to use chain selectors for selecting sounds for various reasons. But Bitwig has an instrument selector that does that. Bitwig has full support for multi-channel MIDI. It just doesn't simplify it, because why would you? So that's awesome. It supports Linux. It has sensible support for the sustain pedal. You know, if the sustain pedal is down when you finish recording a clip, it just lifts it for you, so that you don't get a hung sustain pedal and you don't get hung notes. And, you know, it just deals with that whole, like, hung notes and hung sustain pedals. It just deals with it, and it's not a problem, which is amazing. You know, for someone who wants to work with MIDI and do live looping and switching around of sounds, like, that needs to be taken care of, and Bitwig just deals with it for you in an intelligent way, so that it's just not a problem. Thank God. Another thing that you may remember from when I did the video talking about Touch Designer, that I discovered that Ableton Live actually doesn't have any internal representation of timecode, and because it doesn't have really an internal timecode, it's all based on beats and bars rather than actual hours, minutes, and seconds. Because Ableton Live doesn't really seem to actually have an internal timecode, it can't export timecode for other applications to sync up. But Bitwig does have internal timecode, and it exports timecode, so syncing it with Touch Designer is going to be much simpler. And for all of those reasons, and many other besides, Bitwig is just much better for what I want. And, you know, honestly, switching to Bitwig feels like, you know, I've jumped forward 10 years and come back with Ableton Live version 20. Like, every single feature, Bitwig is so similar to Ableton Live that it's, you know, I can't believe they get away with being such a shameless ripoff. But every single feature within Bitwig is far more advanced than the same feature in Ableton Live. It's like they've, you know, they took all the lessons from Ableton Live and all the things that Ableton Live tries to do, but sort of, you know, it always falls short of the mark, and it just doesn't quite have the options that you need to fully realize the promise of the application. You know, and I've felt like this with Ableton Live for the last decade, like, and I always just put it down to, wow, you know, I must be, you know, trying to do, you know, I'm trying to make it do things it wasn't made to do, or, you know, maybe I just don't know how to do it properly, or you know, I just don't understand the way that I'm supposed to think about it. But using Bitwig, everything just works the way that I expect it to. And when I try to do things like, yeah, every feature just is so much more fully featured and has all of the options that I had always wished were there. You know, I could do I can and probably should do a much, you know, more detailed comparison video between the two, but I'm just letting you know now that that is my overall experience with Bitwig. And so just last night, after 2 days of evaluating all of the different problems, you know, evaluating the specific features that I have problems with in Ableton Live, and then realizing that Bitwig just has great solutions for all of them, including, by the way, the fact that it has a public API that you can program. You know, Ableton Live has an API, but it's not public, it's not officially supported, it's not well documented. And, you know, I have spent a bit of time trying to program it, you know, a number of years ago, and it was, you know, because it's not, I understand why they don't publicly support it, and it's because it's a bit of a mess, and it's difficult to program. You know, I don't know, maybe they've fixed it up a bit since then, but Bitwig has an officially supported public API, and all of the controller scripts for mapping, you know, like hardware controllers into Bitwig are all written in you know, that that public API, and they're open and accessible. You know, if you don't like the way that the mapping, the controller mappings work out of the box, you can literally go in and just modify the source code for those mappings, because they're written, you know, in JavaScript using a public API, which is amazing. And so after evaluating it for the last 2 days, last night I purchased the full version of Bitwig Studio, and it's pretty much goodbye Ableton Live. Which is, you know, that's been a very long time coming, and, you know, I'm really excited about what's possible with Bitwig. I mean, just last night, you know, I spent some time trying to reset up the sort of live looping performance composition setup that I've always tried to be doing in Ableton Live. You know, I set that up again in Bitwig just in one evening, and it's already as good as it was in Ableton Live, and I'm excited about how I can finally put, you know, do some more of the things that I always wanted to do with it within Bitwig, because of, you know, there's so many more options and possibilities in it. So that's exciting. And I'll probably do a future video going into detail about exactly what that setup is and why it's so complicated and why I need so many options. But, you know, ultimately, to give you a quick view, you know, I want to have, you know, be able to lay down all of the different parts of a track. You know, because it all comes back to trying to actually have a composition, like a composition setup, so that I can come into the studio, I'm going to start a completely new song. I can just choose a drum kit and just, you know, start playing some, you know, lay out some drums, choose a bass sound, play some bass, you know, choose a pad sound, play some pads, choose an arpeggio sound, play some arps, grab my mic, record some vocals, you know, go to the next song section and record that in. And in order to do that, I don't want to be having to, you know, configure the set every single time. I don't want to start with a blank canvas. I want to start with each of these tracks has all of the sounds that I typically use, and at the press of a button I can choose a sound and then record it in, and then go to the next track, and at a press of a button there I can choose from my short list of sounds that are already ready to go. I don't have to open a browser to choose, which plugin I'm going to use, and then open that plugin and then choose from its whole list of sounds which one I want there, and then record something. No, I don't want to have to use a mouse or a keyboard at all while I'm going through this workflow of selecting a sound, playing something. I want to be able to have my guitar on and just push a button on my foot pedals. I've got a foot pedal that's got all these buttons on it. Just push a button on the foot pedal to choose from a set of sounds, push another button to change track, and then the buttons on the foot pedal choose from the list of sounds I have there. I want to have all of this set up because it's all about having an efficient workflow for writing music so that I can just write music and not screw around with setting up tracks and plugins and presets in the middle of trying to actually write music, because it just gets in the way and it ruins your workflow. The number one ruiner of being in the flow when you're trying to write is if you have to audition sounds. Browse through a list with a mouse, squinting at the screen and choosing sounds, and what is that one? No, that's not the one. No, that's not the one. I like to be able to have done all of that previously, so I have my short list of sounds that are my go-to sounds, and that I can just easily choose them on my, on a button on my keyboard, like over here, or on my foot pedal, or whatever. And that's the holy grail that I'm going for, and I'm really excited trying to implement that in Bitwig now, because the features and the functionality and how open it is just make it so much more possible than it ever was in Ableton. So that's my vlog for this week. What's next? Going forward, I'm finally going to get to the vocal focus that I was talking about. The performance project is done. The video clips that I'm going to do are actually mostly a project for my personal assistant, the lovely Beady Dubs. She's really enjoying learning all about video editing, and so I'm giving her all the audio and all the videos of all the stuff that we've done, and in that case I just get to be like the director, and I tell her what the vision is and how I want it to be, and she's actually being the video editor and putting it all together. We're using DaVinci Resolve, and she'll be putting all of that together in there, and I'm really excited about that coming together. And so I'm focusing now on the vocals. I'm getting my Bitwig template together for recording, and that's what we're doing. Working on video clips, resetting everything up in Bitwig, and focusing on getting those vocals down. And I'm really excited because now that I can get my live looping composition set up going in Bitwig, being able to layer vocals down on top of that and is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. So this is all very exciting. Thanks for watching. It was a long video this week, but I've got to make up for the last 2 weeks, and I'm also going to be looking forward to doing a bit more on social media coming up, finding ways to actually be a little bit more visible without all this high effort of doing a vlog like this, because it does tend to take up a lot of my Mondays, and I need to I need to do more on social media in less time, and so I'll be looking at ways to do that as well. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.